We like to call it the Supernatural Hour. And now, our hosts.
So let's go back to Uri Geller and the CIA. So back in the 70s, the CIA
1973 to be specific.
Yeah, I won't tell you how old I was then, but I was alive.
I was not.
I was.
You were thought of.
I was either thought of or I was
You were cooking.
cooking.
He was cooking. They actually had, they brought in a bunch of people, and Uri Geller just happened to be one of them. And they had a bunch of tests, and one of the tests was they would draw a picture, they had a photo, and they would ask all these people that they brought in to guess what had been drawn.
Sounds kind of like the starting of Ghostbusters 1.
I was just going to talk about that documentary. At the beginning where Dr. Venkman is
testing
is
college
testing
students.
college students, yeah.
With electrical shock therapy.
Yeah, and so some of the pictures that they drew, I'm just going to ignore that. I'm just moving on. So some of the pictures that they had was a spaceship, and Uri drew the spaceship, and then they had another one, a picture of grapes, and he drew the grapes. He did enough tests well enough that the CIA said, yeah, this guy's legit. And everyone, oh, he's legit. And he went on, he's originally from Israel. I don't know if that's where he still lives. Just random little fact right there in the middle of whatever. But he became very popular. He became very wealthy. And, everyone thought he was just the bomb.
When I was looking into Uri Geller, I found at some point that he was using a special metal, and it was that special metal he was creating these spoons out of that was helping him to do this. And that metal would actually dissolve in water. But when I tried to find the name of it today, I couldn't.
You couldn't find it.
No.
The U.S. ran a program for 20 years to train psychic operatives. And there's actually a book about it. And they made a movie adaptation in 2009 with George Clooney. It's called The Men Who Stare at Goats.
I think I saw that movie.
I did see that movie.
Did you?
I did.
I've never even heard of this movie, so it must not
Really?
have done really
It's
well.
actually pretty good if I remember right.
It was kind of boring, but it's kind of funny. It's kind of George Clooney.
Well, George Clooney in it, and The Men Who
Yeah.
Stare at Goats. I have to watch it just to find out why they stared at goats. So one of the things that Uri said they had him do is, he said they wanted me to stand outside the Russian embassy in Mexico and erase floppy disks being flown out by Russian agents. He had to get near someone signing a nuclear deal and bombard him with sign, sign, sign. So that's kind of what the CIA wanted to use these operatives for.
To help manipulate others into doing things.
An influence.
Yep.
So the George Clooney movie, I think they're fainting goats and the goats fall over. It's been like 15 years since I've seen that.
I just know that
love-
I've seen it, but I can't remember the details of the movie.
I love fainting
It's
goats.
been a
They're
while.
so cute.
I can just see George Clooney sitting there he's sitting in a chair staring at a goat, waiting for this goat to fall over. But I think they're fainting goats. Now I'm going to have to Google.
So there's a filmmaker named Vikram Jayanti, and I'm sure I mispronounced that. So if you know him and are listening, or if you're listening, sorry. But in 2013...
No, we're not sorry if he's listening.
Well, I'm sorry that I slaughtered his name.
Oh, okay.
Full
We're
of-
not.
If
We're
he is
happy
listening,
that
that's
he's
pretty
listening.
Cool.
Yeah, reach out to us if you're listening.
Full of dad jokes today, aren't we? So in 2013, he released a film called The Secret Life of Uri Geller, Psychic Spy? ? And he claimed that Geller was a secret agent for the CIA and possibly for the Mossad, which is the Israeli intelligence agency. This filmmaker, Jayanti, told a newspaper that Uri did have a controversial reputation. A lot of people think he's a fraud. A lot of people think he's a trickster and make things up, but at the same time he has a huge following and a history of doing some things that nobody could explain. And Uri actually made a career from TV appearances worldwide, and he did all sorts of tricks like bending spoons, making clocks stop. I saw one, we watched a YouTube one where he had a compass, and he would make the compass move, and to show people that he didn't have magnets on him, he stripped down to, he's sitting in a boat and he stripped down to where he's just like in his skivvies. He kept taking clothes off, and I was like, where is this going?
Start playing the stripper music.
Yeah. And then he would describe hidden things and draw pictures, and I mean he's made a pretty decent living off of his telekinesis.
One thing that's kind of interesting, you mentioned that people said that he's kind of controversial as far as what he can do. And honestly, having been involved in the paranormal field for as many years as I have been, anybody and everybody who makes any kind of paranormal claim, regardless of how legitimate it is or isn't, is controversial. I mean,
Absolutely.
you know, we look at, like, say, Peaches, who used to be on the podcast a while back. I mean, she was a psychic, she's a medium, and I've seen her abilities. I know firsthand what she really can do. But I guarantee there's people out there who would say she's full of BS and she's a fraud. It just, you know, honestly, going on investigations, there's people who would say that you guys are charlatans for charging people money to go to Family Tree or Dalton's or anywhere else. It's just, honestly, those who don't know or understand are always going to call someone a fraud. I'm not saying that Uri Geller was legit. I honestly don't know. But I just find it fascinating that there's always those who are just firm not believers who are going to just call BS on anything, regardless, just because it's something different.
Right. One of the little jokes I make, you know, when it comes to the paranormal field in general, it's really hard to prove anything. I mean, we can get evidence, we can do our best. You know, every time we do an investigation, we get a little more knowledge. And I always tell people, when I die, God might pat me on the head and say, "You are totally off base, but look at you, so cute. Look at you trying to figure things out."
I hope that's what he says when I die.
It's kind of what I'm going for,
If I'm
too.
wrong, I hope it's not like a, step in the other room, we need to have a chat.
I know. You know, really when it comes to the paranormal, it's our best guess. And that's one reason why I find it so fascinating, because you don't know. It's a mystery, and you're just trying to put all those puzzle pieces together. That's why I find it fascinating. However, the more I've researched Uri Geller, the more I think he was just kind of an awesome magician. Sorry if you're listening. But
a conjurer. That was the word that I heard used for him, and I thought that was a pretty good word for him.
Now, let's say, just for the sake of discussion, that he's an absolute total fraud. I've seen some of the stuff he did, and if he's just simply a magician, an illusionist, he's really good at it.
Right.
So I will give him that.
And that's okay.
Right. I had never really heard of Uri Geller until I was just kind of scrolling through the internet. The reason why a lot of people probably have not heard of him is he was exposed as a fraud on the Johnny Carson show.
Oh,
And
I didn't see that.
and his career just took a serious nosedive after that.
Yeah,
Oh.
Johnny had set up with his team and with Uri Geller's team all of the, well, I'll call them props, the vials, the canisters, the ball, the things that he'd do, the spoons.
Keys was a big one.
Keys. But he got all of these different things and told them what they wanted him to get, and Johnny Carson's team got those all up and set them up, you know, so that he had nothing to do with them. And then he had a difficult time. I don't know if it's called performing, but he had a
A
difficult
little performance
time.
anxiety.
Yeah.
Now, one thing, Johnny Carson really liked magicians. It's one of the things that kind of really fascinated him. And he worked with, and you have to take this into consideration, he actually talked to one of Uri Geller's rivals, you know, a well-known magician. And he said, okay, I want to bring Uri Geller on, and I want to see, what his abilities are. And the magician told Johnny, he said, find out what props that he requires, but he says, get them for him, but do not let his people touch them at all. And so Johnny actually told Uri this on this episode. He said, I've got these items on the table. Nobody has touched them except my crew. I could feel Uri on this YouTube recording
Get nervous.
get nervous.
Kind of like your dog. I can hear barking in the background right now.
Yes. Did he escape and get up here earlier?
He's coming up to protect us. You don't know what Rogue does for a living.
You pet groomer.
That's one of them. Yeah, I'm a pet nutritionist.
She's helping my dog get skinny. So my dog is still a pinhead, but she's getting better. It doesn't take her quite as long to get out the dog door.
squeeze through the door.
I am allergic to dogs. It's the saliva.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
One thing to remember is Johnny Carson was actually a magician at one point in his life. He really kind of liked exposing hoaxes.
So he was kind of a Penn and Teller, pre-Penn and Teller.
Right, but he loved being able to say, this person's a hoaxster. It is something that Johnny just liked to do. And so that's one reason why he brought Uri on, because he was so famous. He wanted to see him do these things in front of him, not just on TV or, he wanted him to be, 3 feet away from him.
Yeah, and he gave him every opportunity.
Yeah, and Uri, you could just feel his tension, and he kept saying, and you can find this really easy on YouTube. It's not, you don't have to dig for this if you want to watch it. But he kept saying, sometimes I'm just not on. Sometimes I'm just, I've got to kind of be in the mood. I've got to be ready. Johnny actually kind of had to really convince him to even try on the show.
It was a long, not just one segment. It was like 3 segments of the show.
Yeah, if you've ever
There were
watched
like 2
Johnny
or 3
Carson.
commercial breaks.
Right, if you've ever watched Johnny Carson, his segments are pretty short.
Yeah.
This one went on for probably 20 minutes, I want to say. That's how long the YouTube clip was, at least.
Wow. Did he have other guests sitting?
He had Ricardo Montalban with him.
Oh,
Con!
I remember. The plane.
I
the
could
plane.
just visualize Uri Geller sitting there staring at a spoon, shaking like a dog pooping a peach bit, trying to get that thing to bend.
In
Right.
front of millions of people on Johnny Carson.
Exactly.
Yeah, so they had some
Let's
film
see.
canisters, and I've just lost anybody that was born after 1980. But you used to
Film
buy
canisters?
film canisters, those little aluminum film canisters. You'd buy film and put the film in your camera that was not attached to your phone.
For those born after 1980, they're about the size of a prescription pill bottle, but they're black to keep the light out to the film.
Or the metal ones.
Yeah,
Both.
these were like aluminum ones, so
Oh, okay.
you might even be too young for those. I'm
Yeah.
too young for those.
Yeah, they're plastic by the time I was.
I
Good
still
for me.
remember.
Yeah, these are aluminum ones, and they had water in one of them. And so one of his tricks was he'd hold his hand over it, and he could feel the one that had water in it. And he struggled with everything.
Mm.
And I think part of it, because when he first came out, he was pretty cocky. And not cocky, but just, confident, and I'm here to do my tricks. And as soon as Johnny told him, no one has touched these items except my crew, is when you could just kind of see his demeanor change and feel his demeanor change. And he knew that
The gig's up
the
here.
gig's up, that his toast was buttered.
That's too bad. So is Uri still with us, or has he passed on?
He's still around.
But
doesn't-
he's just not in the limelight.
No, and he might be doing stuff. I don't even know where he is anymore.
Okay.
Carson kept urging him, kept, and not, I'm not pressuring you, but, here you are, let's do something. And he just kept getting more and more nervous. He couldn't do it.
You've been listening to the Supernatural Hour at AdvancedParanormal.com. The Supernatural Hour is part of the Radio Ronin network found at RadioRonin.com. Copyright 2021 by Advanced Paranormal Services.